Mayor, the multipurpose room is still muted.
Can't hear me.
I can now.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now call to order the study session of the West Valley City Council. It is May 17th, 2022, 4:30 p.m. and we're in the multipurpose room of West Valley City Hall. All members are accounted for either electronic or in person, except for Councilman Fitzsimonu, who we will excuse for our meetings tonight. We have the meetings and we have our city recorder online, our city manager online. So if you don't see them here, they're online. We have our minutes from May 10th. Do we have a discussion or motion for the minutes?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. And those pass. We have a review of our minutes for tonight, our meeting for tonight. So we're having the building authority only tonight, no regular meeting. And Mr. Pyle, would you like to go through that one with us, please?
Yes, ma'am. So it's a public hearing as required by law, but there's no decision to be made. It's just a requirement that the public does have opportunity to comment. And this are on the bond passage for the court construction.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So since we don't have our regular meeting, this is scheduled for 6:30
Correct.
and we can't start it until 6:30.
Correct.
And since we won't have our regular meeting, we don't have an item on the agenda for public comments.
Correct.
I guess we have a public hearing, but those comments should be directed to that
The
issue.
bond. Yeah, so we'll have public comment again next week.
If there are residents who come and wish to give public comment, because we usually have a regular meeting, and since we are meeting, would it be allowable for us to add a public comment item to the agenda of the building authority?
That would be a Ms. Kamick and Mr. Pyle question. Or
Right,
Mr.
so-
Bunderson.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Nicole speak to if you want. You cannot add an item to the agenda at this point, but council and or board, you always have leeway as to what kind of comments you want to allow. So you could do that. I would suggest though that let me back up just from a history standpoint. There's no legal requirement to allow public comment anyway in any meeting. You as a council many years ago made the decision to allow that in a particular format. And so therefore the rules for that are set up that way. So if you're concerned in that there is some sort of a expectation, I would submit that the expectation is only real or expected necessarily when there is an actual meeting that is set up for that for the purpose of the rules. Now, having said that again, yeah, during any kind of meeting, if you want to recognize the audience for any purpose, including the study meeting for that matter, as you do on rare occasion, you could accept comment anytime you want.
And Wayne,
So go ahead.
I don't think the building authority has ever had public comment other than the public hearings. So
That's
there would
correct,
be
at least to my
no
knowledge.
precedent.
Yeah.
But I don't remember a precedent where we had a building authority meeting without having a regular meeting before that. Not in-
No, I don't remember that either, Lars, but I do remember plenty of precedent in terms of regular meetings foregone in the past where there was no extra notice or allowance for or setup of any kind of meeting just to allow for public comment.
So I guess my concern isn't that we're required to have a public comment time. It's just, I have a concern for residents who know that we have a traditional meeting at 6:30 that they can speak in, and if they didn't get the word, that we don't have a regular meeting, that they may come here hoping to speak to us. And And I would think that we would want to accommodate that.
Nicole, did you have an opinion on it, or did Mr. Pyle cover it well enough?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Mr. Pyle. I don't think there's anything necessarily against allowing a public comment period if the majority of the council agrees to do that, but it wasn't noticed with the open public comment period, and the regular council meeting was canceled. Yeah, that's pretty much in agreement with Mr. Pyle.
Yeah, and again, let me add, it doesn't matter to us from a staff standpoint. If you guys want to do that and you feel a majority of you would like to allow that, feel free.
Okay, thank you.
So is there anyone else who thinks that we should allow that to happen, or just me?
We're not making a decision tonight on anything. I mean, that's kind of what I look at is, you're going to influence any of our votes tonight. Well, we're not going to vote. So like, I think we could.
Most of the people who speak to us in public comment aren't speaking about a particular item that we have on our agenda. I mean, they do, but most of the time it's just what's on their mind. And if they come here having something on their mind that they wish they could tell us, we're meeting anyway. I mean,
just like I run into the same thing like Lost thinking right now. I know it's the first time ever I have ever seen like this. So maybe we just let it go through for this time tonight. Is that what you want to do, Lost?
I'm not sure what you mean by let it go through, but
So you mean to give?
I would like us to add a little public comment time in
For
our
tonight.
building authority meeting.
Right, for tonight.
Yeah, just for tonight,
Right, I'm okay with that.
just because we don't have a regular meeting, but we're still meeting at 6:30.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And
Okay.
Councilman, well, Mr. Christensen, it's your meeting. Are you good with that?
Fine with me, if there's anybody there.
All right,
Right.
thank you.
But I won't be here tonight.
Oh, you won't be there for the extra? Okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you so much. We'll now move on to our public hearing scheduled for the 24th. And Mr. Pyle, we'll turn it over to you for the surplus property at Mountain View Corridor. Or do you want?
Thank
just
you,
turn it
ma'am.
over to Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's just hand it off to Mr. Jackson. That'll be great.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Jackson with West Valley City RDA and Economic Development Division. Nice to see you guys all for the first time in a while. Up here to introduce the resolution and the hearing. In introduction to that, you guys know that the property to the west of 5600 West, the salvage yard area, has been under we had our eye on it for the last couple of decades. And the last few years especially, we've turned a lot of attention to it, been studying it, looking at it closely. And with the Mountain View Corridor coming through and cutting through that area, made a lot of changes in the business environment, a lot of changes in the land. It's become very apparent to us that the time now is very ready and ripe to look at this area closer for redevelopment. And in speaking with UDOT, they've expressed desire to put the surplus land not used in the Mountain View Corridor on their surplus list. And we wanted to have the opportunity to engage with them and discuss that with them. And as a part of that, the ability to be in compliance with their policy and have the ability to discuss and engage that with them. We have to pass a resolution stating that we're going to be using this property for a public use, which economic development meets a public use, and then receive public input on that. So that's the nuts and bolts of what that resolution is. And let me know if you have any questions. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Just clarifications that we wouldn't enter in any contracts with UDOT until, without council approval, right?
That's right. This is simply just to check a box to engage with them in that discussion.
How your engagement? I mean, conversation between you guys and the UDOT is it coming along well.
It hasn't come along yet. We first have to pass a resolution and listen and receive public input before we can talk about price, do appraisals, any kind of due diligence, or to even consider that with them. So those discussions will take place and definitely keep you up to speed on that.
But I meant like you send a signal to them, let them know it's.
Oh, yeah.
We're interested in that.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, they said, please, we're willing to talk to you about that. Please pass a resolution and get public input and we can go further from there.
Fair enough.
Would it be possible just to quickly pull up the map and walk through the different colors and I didn't see a legend or
Sure.
anything. So
Absolutely. Yeah, so what I'll do is just walk you through here. So everything that's in purple and green is under UDOT ownership and will be surplused by UDOT.
Difference between purple and green?
No, just contrasting the different parcels. Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
What is it, the red or the pink right there in the middle between the purple one?
Most likely that's going to be some sort of right of way.
Okay.
Utilities, access, etc.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll now move to PUD 120-22. I will turn the time over to Mr. Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Lehman with the Planning and Zoning Division. This application is a request from Brad Reynolds seeking final plat approval for the Meadows on 32nd. This property will be familiar to the council in that in December 2021, this property was rezoned from the C2 zone to the RM zone. So before explaining the project, we just have a few photos to show you. So this first illustration is the property. America First Credit Union is the building at the north end adjacent to 3500 South. The larger piece to the south is the portion of property that will be used for the townhome project. This application is amending lots 1A and 2A of the America First Credit Union subdivision plat. Both of these properties are currently owned by America First. And in their transaction with Mr. Reynolds, there was an adjustment of the property line. So we do need to include that as part of the application. The next illustration is looking due west off of 3200 West. This is the piece of property that sits south of the subject property. The next slide is looking to the west. So this is the vacant portion that Mr. Reynolds is purchasing from America First Credit Union. The next slide is the access into the America First. So America First has two access points, this one on 3200 West, the other one right on 3500 South. And the next slide is looking south along 3200 West. And then we do have a couple of illustrations, excuse me, this is looking across the property to the northwest. You can see the America First building in the distance, as well as the Dutch Brothers coffee shop there. So we do have a couple of illustrations for you regarding the subject property. So this is the site plan. So there are a total of 33 units here on about 3.5 acres. There will be a single point of access coming in off of 3200 West, and it will terminate in a hammerhead configuration approved by the fire department. There's a combination of 3, 4, and 5-plex units. During the rezone application, the square footage was established at 1,550 square feet. In addition to that, each of these units will have a basement of 750 square feet. So these units will be approximately 2,300 square feet in size. Each of these units has a two-car garage with parking in front of the garage and additional guest parking spaces provided by Mr. Reynolds. The overall parking here is 4.5 spaces per unit. Subsequent to the approval of this zone change, the council did change our parking ratio to 4.75 spaces, but this project was approved at 4.5. There is one amenity required for the project, which is the green space at the end. Mr. Reynolds is also providing a trail system around the entire perimeter of the project. I have just a couple of illustrations, so it gives you an idea about what is being proposed here. So this is the fiveplex building. Mr. Reynolds, in our opinion, does a good job in his architecture. For those of you that are driven by the project on 4500 South, 2700 West, he does pay a lot of attention to detail. And then you have the drive court or the backside of these units. This is the fiveplex. And I do believe we have a fourplex as well. Each of these also has a little courtyard patio space off of the living portion of the dwelling. And then the backside of the unit. And then just the last slides are of the subdivision plat itself. Due to the size of the project, there are 2 pages. So this shows the lot up at the top, which is the America First Credit Union, shows the northern units of this project. And then the last slide is the portion of units to the south. And that is our report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, great explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to ordinances, and we're going to amend section 1-2-107, and Ms. Day will take care of that one.
Good evening, Councilman and Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. So this resolution would be to change the fee structure for the childcare and the kids camp programs, which include the kinder camp, after school program, the kids camp, kind of the full day program that we run. With the increase in operating costs for these particular programs, we need to be able to increase those fees to help offset the cost to run those programs for our community. And so as you can see below, you can see what the changes would be. So for example, the member rate for childcare, you'll see the first one is non-member. So there's an increase for the non-member. The member rate has not changed. So that's still the $2 for the second hour. The first hour is free for members of the Family Fitness Center. So the increase that you see there is for non-members. And then the kids camp programs, you can also see some of the differences there on what that would entail. We are, for the kids camp programs, now going to be offering a 15% discount for Family Fitness Center members. We do that typically for the majority of the programs that are offered there, and we felt that it was time for us to be consistent with that with our kids camp programs as well. So that will be included as an element of the changes as well. So what we're proposing is approval for these changes so that we can keep up with the costs that we have seen over the last little bit for these programs. Are there any questions?
Anything from the council? Okay.
All right.
Looks like not. Thank you so much. We'll go to our resolutions, and we have 22-07 or 87, and Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Jason Erickson, West Valley City Parks and Recreation. Good evening to all of you. As you can see, so this is the bike park that we've discussed a number of times through the past few years. We are kind of in the final stages of environmental. So we're trying to get the ball rolling here to be able to begin construction here quickly. So as you can see in this picture, and can you see my cursor on there when I do that? So this, don't do that. Okay, this area here is the existing area, with the area in the brown, the 2 pump tracks that we already have. So all of the asphalt areas that you see there are the areas that will be installed with this contract. As you can see through a number of these pictures, there'll be kind of some really neat elements installed. We're actually quite excited about this. There'll be areas for people who are more advanced, that are able to utilize them, as well as beginners to be able to utilize it. We're hoping that it's going to decrease the amount of traffic in the skate park for those who want to use the skate park versus be on bikes, and so as well as bring other people who are going to be able to utilize this. So this is kind of a project that's not really that they've really dealt with, or that has been seen as it's in here west of the Mississippi. So it's kind of an interesting concept, and we're really excited to be able to be bringing it to West Valley City. As you can see, the funding will almost totally be through CDBG monies, which is why we've been having to wait for environmental stuff to get all approved and finalized before we can move forward. But we're hoping that all gets taken care of here shortly. So, and with that, any questions from the council or mayor? Yes, sir.
Some of your pictures show like that one, big rocks next to an element. Were you gonna mention that too? Like I can just see my 14-year-old dumping it right there and breaking an arm and a head and a leg.
So it's like the skate park. So it's a ride at your own risk, right? And but we do have there'll be signs that say like expert section, where there's jumps or areas that we expect to have, where people we expect to be in the air in order to clear some elements,
Yeah.
Then, and this, I mean, if you go to like different bike parks throughout the country, and even like down in Draper, they have one that's all dirt. They have areas that are for aerials and, for beginner users as well as expert users.
Yeah, I'm good with dirt. Just the big boulders, I would prefer not to have those.
We can definitely look at not having the boulders there.
Okay.
Maybe they just look like boulders, but they're really cushiony.
Yeah, they're soft.
Yeah, it's sofa cushions. Yes, rock-looking sofa cushions. Yes.
Pillows.
Yeah, I'm with Scott. I don't think it's a rock right here. Yeah.
Rocks might be a hazard. Okay, anything else?
This is really exciting. I think this will be a great addition.
We are excited as well, so it'll be fun.
So what is the condition of the existing pump trails right now? I mean, I've heard that they're in disrepair, that they're not holding up. Is that true?
So the ones that we have now are wood composite that have kind of a fiberglass coating on them, and they do get wear and tear on them. We do repair them as quickly as we find that they're broken. Well, a lot of times, especially since COVID, right? We used to be able to get these things within 2 or 3 weeks, and some of this stuff is now pushed out, where it's a month or two in order to be able to get, if not more, in order to get parts. And so, as far as I know, the last time I heard, we were all repaired and riding on it right now, but today there could have been something. What happens is the pegs on the side of the BMX bikes, when they hit that, they'll drag down it and punch holes in it.
Okay.
So.
And this is going to be asphalt.
This will be asphalt, correct. And we did that for a couple of reasons, and then that was for ease of maintenance. One, so that because people, even though they say don't ride when it's wet or muddy, people are still riding it, and that then you have to go and do all the transitions and re-rake them and compact them and do things like that. So this will help alleviate that.
Okay. Don't see anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll now go to resolution 2288, award of a contract to Kilgore. Turn the time over to Mr. Johnson.
Mayor, I did just want to note that Councilmember Fiti Samanu joined us.
Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon. We come to you recommending to you that you award a contract to Kilgore Contracting This is for the 3100 South Active Transportation Program overlay that we've been working on, and you've seen several right-of-way acquisitions for pedestrian ramp reconstructions and things like that. The project consists of the replacement of the storm drain west of 4800 West. You may recall the western limits of the big reconstruction project in 1998 and 99 was 4800 West. And so everything east of 4800 West from a storm drain perspective is in great shape, but west of 4800 West, we have a lot of old corrugated metal pipe. And so we'll be removing all the old stuff and replacing that storm drain with new pipe. And then the whole road from 40th, from Bangerter to 5600 West gets overlaid and repaved with new pedestrian ramps and things like that. And so we will not be issuing notice to proceed to Kilgore until after West Fest. So the parade will go on and will be uninterrupted. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Are there any questions? Well, related to the price, this is about $500,000 more than what we had estimated. And that is really just a fact that kind of the nature of the bidding market these days. Just to give you an idea, a year or so ago, we were paying about $70 a ton for asphalt, just the hot mix asphalt placed. And this is about 105, if I recall, a little bit over $100. And so we're definitely seeing the pain of the price of oil and every other commodity out there. So, and that's reflected in this bid.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We'll now move on to resolution 22-89. And that's Mr. Johnson as well.
Mr. Brondum.
Okay, it says Mr. Johnson. So here we go.
Hello, Eric Brondum, the Public Works Operations Engineer. So this is just an authorization to purchase some streetlight materials with the new streetlight utility coming online. We're trying to get ahead of the slowdown in being able to get things. So we're doing this in preparation to do a couple of projects here to do some infill. We've identified some areas of the city that need additional lights in some neighborhoods and a little bit of upgrading. So we're going to get those materials on the way, and then we'll be putting together a project to bid out for that infill project here in the next little bit. And this also includes just regular maintenance materials, more poles and fixtures just to fix stuff that gets broken, hit by cars and things like that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Do we have a schedule, maybe kind of a 5-year plan of where lights are being installed?
We have an outline. I don't have a schedule yet. One of the options we're looking at is hiring a consultant to do a master planning effort for us to help us and guide us in best way to spend the money and get it where it needs to be first. We've been looking at that, and we've got some ideas of where that needs to happen. And that's kind of this first project will take us to some of those areas based on resident requests for additional lighting in their neighborhoods, and just looking at the spread of lights and where we could use a little additional help.
Okay.
So this one kind of the first stage.
Yeah.
And then you will have more stages in the future.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah, we're just trying to order enough to do the infill project and then have some stock on hand for maintenance work. So yeah, we do see a pretty significant savings by buying direct from the manufacturer. So it's a lot better for us.
just follow up with Scott question earlier. So after those meetings you're gonna have, or you're gonna done, whatever, so you're gonna come back and tell us which area you're gonna go first and second and third or something like that.
Yeah, we can definitely do that if that's what you'd like. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we would like a schedule of process.
Yeah, we'll do a kind of a capital improvement plan process for that.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. We'll now go to our new business. Consider application S3 2021, and that will be Mr. Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. So this application is a request from Sean Johnson, developer of Weston Field. So this project is located at 6840 West, 4100 South. There are a total of 38 lots on 13 acres. This is phase 2 of Weston Field. So the phase that is in the middle, or the crosshatched area, is phase 1. We are real close to recording that plat, probably within the next few weeks. The other sections to the east and to the west are part of phase 2. The eastern portion along the tracks is the portion that is zoned R18, and the western portion, or the 7 looking configuration, is zoned RE. So we do have just a few illustrations for you as well. This project is located south of 4100 South. This is looking to the northwest. You can see a lion or a Hercules in the background. The next slide is looking to the southeast. The next slide is looking just due south. There is a little bit of grade elevation here, as well as the railroad tracks in the distant. And the next slide is looking along 4100 South. You'll notice that there are no formal improvements such as curb, gutter, sidewalk here. The developer of this subdivision will be installing those improvements as part of the application. And then we have the plat itself. So this is the western section, or the portion that's zoned RE, although there are a few R18 lots there as well. The RE portion consists of 16 lots. The average square foot here is just over 15,000 square feet. And then the next slide is the eastern portion, which is zoned R18. There are 22 lots in the R18 section here. The only other thing that I would comment on here are 2 issues. The first is that there will be a 6-foot masonry wall along 4100 South. That wall will match the wall that the city used in its 4100 South project from Bangor to 5460 West. And then the only other thing I would like to mention is that when this property was rezoned, the city council required that a condition be placed on the plat that identifies this area adjacent to an active rail line, and that it would be subject to those sights and sounds that are prevalent with a railroad. So that will be a note that gets placed on both plats in phase 1 and 2. And that is our report.
Thank you. Any comments or concerns from the council? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lehman.
Thank you.
We will now go to the consent agenda. Mr. Pyle.
Thanks, ma'am. I don't think there's anything unusual on these, but we can have Public Works come up if you want to take a look at them.
Did anybody have questions on these? Have they reviewed them? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. Unfinished business. We'll turn this over to Mr. Pastrick. Or who's taking care of this one?
I was going to say it is Steve, but he just popped up there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor, and good afternoon. So this item was actually continued by the city council last week, and so we've reviewed the proposal and the study meeting in 2 weeks ago. There's really no new information here, and so I'm happy to answer any questions at this point, but no new information to present unless, again, there are questions.
Okay, this one was mainly continued because we couldn't come to a decision.
Correct.
He hasn't changed any of his proposal at all.
That's correct.
Yeah, I can say you were the only one not here, so do you have questions?
Well, I'm just curious if the council would be agreeable to, I know the public comment on this was open and closed. If we could reopen that up next week, just in case there are other residents that would like to speak on this. If we could reopen that up.
Yeah, we can take a vote on that when it comes that time next week. Do you see a problem with that, Ms. Kamic?
No, ma'am. So that would be the correct procedure. You would just ask to reopen that, get a motion in a second, and then the majority of the council saying yes to reopen the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to our communication items. And Mr. Pastrick will start off with the shopping center standards.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll share my screen here. So a few months ago, the council requested a discussion on this item, and so I have a PowerPoint here to go over some of the history as well as what's in the ordinance currently. So I'll walk through this. So the ordinance currently includes a provision that establishes a 1 acre minimum area for a shopping center. And you can see here that a shopping center is defined as a group of retail and other commercial establishments built on a site which is planned, developed, and operated and manages an operating unit. And that standard has been in place since 2017. And prior to that, there was no minimum area for a shopping center other than just the C2 zone does have a minimum lot size that applies to any use. And just the thought at the time back in 2017 was that we, as a city, had received several applications for smaller, what I would call L-shaped strip malls. And that standard was put in place back in 17 to encourage larger shopping centers where you have more tenant options. But then also there's a concern that without some type of regulation, we would just get a lot of these smaller strip malls kind of filling in on streets like Redwood Road and 35th South. So a little bit of the history as far as the council's conversations more recently about this. So starting in towards the beginning of last year, there was concern expressed about this particular regulation. So staff, we sent a response to that concern. Then later in August of last year, again, a question was raised about potentially changing the ordinance. And so the council at that point asked for some more history on it, which the staff addressed in an email. And then later, just a few weeks later, the council asked that we actually schedule a discussion about changing the ordinance, which we did. And in preparation for that conversation, we prepared a couple of maps, which I'll show here in a minute, that outlined these C2 areas along major streets. So again, we provided those maps. And while there was discussion about potentially changing the ordinance, at that point in September of last year, the council did not give any direction about actually changing the ordinance. Then later last year, there was some discussion about a subdivision that happened over at the Valley Fair Mall and whether those lots that were created would violate that rule. And the staff again prepared a memo in response to that. And then just recently in March, again, the question was raised about the possibility of changing the ordinance. And so we're here again to discuss this issue and just again see what the council's pleasure is on this subject. So again, this was the map that we provided last year. So this shows in red those areas that are under 1 acre and are zoned commercial. Now, this includes the red areas would include both developed and undeveloped properties. And then the orange would be residential areas. And then this last or the next map shows just those properties that are vacant. So zone commercial, but vacant along major streets like 56, 35th, and Redwood Road. And then finally, for those areas that are under an acre, this slide shows uses that would be allowed. Now, of course, these same uses would be allowed on properties over an acre, but for those that are under an acre and are not allowed to have a shopping center, you can see the different uses that would be allowed. So quite a few, and this list isn't meant to be exhaustive, but these are the most common uses that you would see that are allowed in the C2 zone. And that concludes our presentation on this topic.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Pastrick?
So Steve, what you're saying is if you have a 3/4 or half acre parcel, you could put a fast food restaurant on it.
That's correct.
Currently, so we're really not restricting those kind of projects. What would be the restriction really? What's the number one restriction we're having with half acre versus an acre or whatever? Under an acre versus over an acre?
Correct. So if it's under an acre, it's the shopping center. So it's more like think of a strip mall where you have a commercial building with multiple tenants versus, and if you look at this list, these would be standalone uses.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Message.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to share this story with the council and also everybody here in this room tonight. I did say that with Steve Biller before, and we have a good chat, but I never said anything after that. But today I want to present it to you. About a year and a half ago, one builder came to me and says, "Tom, you corner people." And he says, "You know, you grew up in Vietnam. You saw the communist people, they took away from people rights without explaining or saying anything about the reason why they did that." Same here with West Valley City. It have 20,000 square, 20 half acre, and now you jump into 1 acre, and without explaining to anybody and without saying anything to the landowners, to anybody about this. That's why I say to you that you are corner people. I think you better than that. I think you grew up in Vietnam and you should do something like that. And so why I didn't do that. And I said, well, the vote was unanimous. I mean, you are involved. But I came back. I asked Steve Patrick about that. How out to be true? I vote for that. I honestly made a mistake because it's wrapped inside a package and I didn't know anything about it. I asked a couple of council members at that time, actually Mayor, former Mayor Ron Bigelow, maybe you too, but he said he didn't know anything about it because inside a packet and he didn't know anything about the change about half acre to 1 acre. As you know, in these cities, investors, basically they want to build townhouses, condos. The same thing with this piece of property on Redwood Road or other places. They want to do that. But my focus is to restore landowners' rights. That's what I'm trying to ask. As long as I'm sitting right here, I kept fighting for that. Here, you see that one thing that's very clear to us recently, public street and private street. We're concerned about that, and we brought to the council multiple times to discuss, to work out, to find a ways to solve that problem. But this one did not do that. That's unfair practice. Just wrap up inside a package and move. Just kind of like plow through it. I says, I don't want this happen because this one we're doing it without explaining any reason we're doing that, without saying anything we're doing that, and people got stuck. Today, you see that our city is diversities. Basically, it's a very, right now we have a minority, it's a majority in this city. And demand is really high in this city. And you see the strip mall is have multiple tenants, and it's a fit right in for that group of people. Balkan area, Eastern area, Asian countries, European countries, and many places on this planet. For example, like Redwood Road, they from like Bosnia, South America, Central America, and other places. And I think that's it. We'll need that in this city, not only Redwood Road, but multiple places, 35 right south, 41 right south, 56, and every major streets here in this city. And I believe is we need to make it right. And I want to bring this one to the regular meeting to vote for that. That's my desire. And I just ask the council, look into that again and see, is that we're doing this the right thing, or we're doing is a kind of sneak way to put this one and vote and nobody know about it. I honestly made a mistake and I take full responsibility for this. And I want to correct that.
Okay. Excuse me, thank you. Anybody else have questions or comments?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, no hurry.
I mean, it looks like, Steve, do you know how many properties on that slide 6? I mean, it looks like maybe 20 properties that are under an acre that this affects.
I'd say that's close. I don't have the exact count, but yeah, looking at the map, that seems pretty close to the number of vacant parcels that this regulation impacts.
So you guys agree with me to put one for the vote?
So I see like 20 down by Redwood Road, but quite a few more out by 56th. So on number 6, this is all the under 1 acre that are available,
Vacant.
vacant, that would be changed if we change the ordinance.
Right. Those would be parcels that are currently under 1 acre and have this restriction of no shopping center. So if the ordinance were changed, then a shopping center would be allowed on these parcels.
So can I put a townhouse on these parcels? Can I put 7 townhouses on this?
No, so the commercial zones don't allow any kind of residential. So it would take a change in zoning in order to do some type of residential use.
So if you're putting multiple, let's just say a minimum of 2 different shops in one building, and then parking for those all on a half acre, that just, to me, that seems a little tight, a little crowded. Maybe that's why we've opted for the 1 acre. I don't know. I'd like to look at examples of what's out there that would meet this at half acre. And
So I guess my question was, because this piece right here by City Park, by the animal shelter, is on your list. They had proposed townhomes and they were allowed on there if we had changed probably the zoning.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I would rather have a small shopping center. I'd really prefer to have the dentist or something there, but over townhomes. So, but if they rezoned it, even though it's under an acre, they could still put townhomes on there, correct?
So the way that works is in our condominium ordinance, which also applies to townhomes, we have a minimum of 1 acre for any kind of a development that would have an association.
Okay.
So if a property is an acre or larger, you can do a condo type or townhome type development. If it's under that, then the only way you could do townhomes would be if they're rental townhomes, because under an acre, it's too small by code to have an association.
Okay, thank you.
Question for Steve is 20,000 square feet before we we had a shopping center, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So the C2 zone has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. That applies to any C2 zone property.
And everything too tight, we can increase that maybe like 25,000 or 30,000 square feet for, shopping center. It's still better than you jump from 20,000 square feet to 1 acre. It's a big jump. And people from between half acre to not reach to 1 acre and they got stuck. And I think it's now in a limbo. And you know that commercial is 100% for taxes. Residential, it's a 45%. You see right there,
On the value.
the value. Yeah. Is that what we have in our head? See right there.
Yeah, I don't think I have a problem with going with the shopping center because we have the parking regulations and the building size.
Yeah, we've been operating for years and years.
So just for my own being able to do some research, could you give us like 5 shopping centers that are on half acres? So we can just go visit it and get a feel for what really does work and not work?
Yes, we can do some research and identify some spots as examples.
Thank you. I would appreciate that myself, just to go visit and see what it really, the size is, because in my brain, I just can't visualize what could go on a half acre. Okay. Any other comments or for Mr. Lehman? Not Lehman, sorry, Mr. Pastrick?
Too many Steves, right?
Steve's. That's why I had to change Brian's name. Okay. Nothing else? Okay. Let's go down to our next communication, which is the renewable energy. And we'll turn the time over to Mr. Springmeyer.
Good afternoon, Council. Jonathan Springmeyer, Chief Sustainability Officer today. As requested from the council, we're here to talk about, have a little discussion about the Community Renewable Energy Program, otherwise known as HB 11. We had a presentation here in February. I wanted to give you a little update on what, if any, changes have happened since that presentation and where we stand. I know there's going to be some questions, and I'm going to anticipate one of them and try to answer it before we ever get to it. So as far as updates and new information or changes since February, to my knowledge, there's no new communities, no new participating or, qualified communities have joined. The costs, and because of that, the costs that were presented during that presentation for West Valley City are still the same, since they're proportional share and there's no new communities coming in. Of note, I thought was interesting, but unfortunately we don't have results. Ogden did a survey of businesses and residences to get their input, get their take on this. Unfortunately, to date, they haven't had enough responses. They're still about half. They're a month or 6 weeks into this, and they still only about half the responses necessary to have any meaningful survey. So we're hoping that we can get some results of that. I thought that might be interesting as a peer city comparison, but unfortunately, we don't have any of that. I participated in a number of meetings over the last 3 months with advocates for the program. Councilman Nordfeld and Councilman Fatisi-Manu joined me in one of those meetings. And I know I can speak for all of us when I say we have all had outreach from concerned advocates, stakeholders in this item who have reached out to us through various channels, hoping to at least get our focus on this item. As far as, one of the question I think I'm pretty sure that's going to come up because it came up in the last conversation. I'm going to answer in advance is what our options are as far as participating now and potentially opting out at some point. So where it stands now, we are a qualified community, meaning we passed the resolution prior to the original date. So we're one of 8 now qualifying communities who have yet to have yet to join. We have until May 31st to make that determination. So we're rapidly approaching that. If the council decides to do that, we would have a payment due of $47,899.22 due immediately. That's the phase 1 payment and our proportional share. And again, that number is based on the current roster of communities. If more came in the next 2 weeks, that number would change, but that's currently the best estimate. Phase 2 payment would be due on July 31st for the same amount. Now, so we have a couple of different opt-out options there. The first is we can participate in phase 1 and then choose not to make the payment for phase 2. That gives us 2 months to look at this and costs us $96,000 for that 2-month peek into that. So I guess first opt out is that we take no action and we're not in. Second opt out would be we participate in phase 1, decide not to proceed with phase 2 by July 31st. In addition to that, there are a handful of other ways where we could passively opt out by not completing any of the statutory and mandatory requirements, such as we don't sign the utility agreement. So therefore, we're no longer qualifying. We'd be no longer qualifying for that, so we would be out. Same with the final ordinance to finalize the participation. So we've got some options along the way before we, as far as sticking our toe in the water, if you will, before we fully committed. But financially, step 1 costs us $47,900. Step 2 costs us $47,900. And those happen May 31st and July 31st. That's the majority of the new information and the opt-out procedures. From this point, I'd just like to see what kind of questions I can answer or help with this discussion in any way I can.
Okay, turn it to the council.
I have some comments, not necessarily questions. In our strategic planning meeting, we had a presentation about all the progress that we've been making and progress that we're going to continue to make. And that's all great news. I believe that this issue is big enough, though, that we should take every opportunity that we have to do what we can to improve air quality and decrease our dependence on fossil fuels for our energy. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think this is a really big decision that we're making, and we really need to make the decision today in order to make put the resolution on next week's agenda. And because that's our last meeting before the deadline. We have talked about reasons that we shouldn't join the program. I want to give you some things that I've thought of that are reasons why we should join. Number one is that it gives some residents and businesses freedom, the opportunity to choose. Right now, if we don't join, there will be residents and businesses who wished that they could choose that option for energy. And if we don't join the program, then they don't have that option. They might have an option to put solar on their own roof, but not everybody has that as an option. And this would give businesses and residents that choice. So we're giving them the liberty to choose how they want their energy produced. Number two is economic development. There are businesses, and it's becoming more fashionable now to be a business that cares about the environment. There are businesses who want to reduce or eliminate their carbon footprint, and have made commitments to do that. And if we join this community, then this will help them to reach their own goals. There's businesses that are in our city now who want to reduce their carbon footprint and help with our air quality. And they may have a desire to leave if we don't give them this option. There are businesses that we don't even know about now, or businesses that we do know about that we want to recruit to our city that will see this as a plus if they can come to our city and have 100% of their energy come from renewable sources. So we are opening things up for the economy in our city if we adopt this. One of the reasons we have stated that we don't want to join is because we only have a 13% say in what is decided by the agency. And that's true. But right now, the percent say that we have for where our energy comes from is 0%. Rocky Mountain Power doesn't consult us when they ask how they want the energy provided to our residents and businesses. We have 0%. 13% is better than 0%. When we were putting together questions for what to ask the candidates for our new city council position, and some of those questions really made me think and wonder, how would I answer those questions? And one of the questions was, where do you envision our city being 50 years from now? And I think that making decisions that will improve air quality and reduce our dependence on fossil fuels are the kind of decisions that they'll look at 50 years ago and say, yeah, that was one of our better decisions. One of our other questions was about what's the difference between a politician and a statesman. And I believe one way to define those differences is a politician makes decisions based on how the current and future voters will interpret that. Where a statesman makes decisions based on not just what's good, what voters will like right now, but what will really benefit their community and everyone in the community, not just those who voted for them or people who voted, but everyone in the community, and not just in the community right now. We have an obligation, not just to the people who vote today, but to people who will be living in our community for 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now. And this decision that we're going to make today is is one of those decisions that separates politicians from statesmen. And I think that's why we should continue with this organization. I've been reading through minutes. I've been in some meetings with this organization, and I have faith in them. They're good people, and they're organized, and they want the best. Have they come to the final decisions yet? No, they haven't, and it takes a long time. We know the wheels of City Hall turn slowly, but they're making progress, and some of the same concerns that we have for the residents who are low income and this opt-out versus opt-in proposal are the concerns that they have as well, and they have committees meeting to look for solutions for these, and we could have a seat at that table as well. And this isn't the final decision. We don't know what this will cost. We have heard our own staff say 25 to 50% increase in energy, but we don't know that. And the numbers that other people are looking at are not that high. If it's above 10%, then there's going to be a special vote, and we can opt out at that time when those numbers are revealed or decided on. If it's a 50% increase, then I think we should opt out. But if it's 10% or lower, or who knows? I heard on the radio this week that we're all concerned about inflation, right? And it depends on which numbers you're looking at. There's a 6% inflation in the last year, or 8%. But for energy costs, it's 30%. And I think that the costs for fossil fuels are just going to keep increasing. And as technology increases and improves, the costs for renewable energy are going to decrease. I think there's a chance that we could save money through this agency, but not if we don't decide today to put it on the agenda and then vote for it next week. But if we don't do that today, we don't have that option. We are stuck on our own with negotiating with Rocky Mountain Power. So I propose that we put it on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
And I would appreciate 3 more people who agree.
Well, I'll just give my opinion on this. So I've received multiple calls and emails and other communication from residents asking to consider joining. I'm not 100% sold on it. I don't know that paying some attorneys, $100,000 will reduce carbon emissions. However, I would support putting it, and I'm not sure how I'll vote. I'm still looking into it, but I'll support putting it on the agenda next week.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I have a question follow up. So.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
Go
hang
ahead.
on just, oh, do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Go ahead, Jake.
For adding this to the agenda. I think
Cutting out, Jake. You need better internet.
Obviously not on Utopia.
I'm pretty sure he said I would support putting this on the agenda. I think I heard that.
What I heard too.
Can you type it in the chat for Nicole so that it's on the record, please? Would that
I can
help?
text him real quick just to see. We don't have a chat box on
Okay.
this one, but I will send him a text just to verify.
All right, thank you. Okay, Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Well, in the past, it looked like you have been supporting our staff very much, almost close to 100%, but not too far. If we go 100%, not too far, but it's very, very much. It's kind of like surprisingly, when I hear you says 25 to 50% increase, and you don't, basically, you didn't say the word trust, but you said, well, you don't know about that. What you want to know about that, about our staff to print that paperwork or print that research or something to you, explain to you, so you know about that.
Well, I don't think the committee even knows about it. Do they?
Thanks, Tom. There are many different projections on what the cost will be. And we received a memo in February or March of last year that said that one person's opinion was 25 to 50%. But there has been a lot of changes since then. And that was still only, one report. There's other reports that I've seen that show different percentages. And I agree with you, Tom. If it's 50% increase in what it's going to cost, then I won't support that. But less than 10, maybe even negative because we're going to save money, I'd definitely like to have that option. But if we don't join this month, then we won't even have that option when the true numbers come out. These are only projections that we've heard. We don't know. So I don't think that our staff would say it's for sure 25 to 50%.
Are you asking me? Is that a question?
That's a question.
John, I'll speak to that. So Lars and council, I think the main point that staff is making is exactly that we don't know. And therefore, we would never recommend you getting into some sort of a transaction or any kind of project based on numbers you don't know. Yeah, it could be 20, 25, 10. We don't know. That's the only point staff's making. We're not saying we have reliable estimates.
I can speak to that.
Sorry, nothing from the
community.
Yep, so if there's 4 that want it on, we can look at it. My thing is, we've had a fence in disrepair at Fazio Park for years, and we haven't had the funds to pay for it to be replaced or repaired. So I don't see how spending $90,000 on a maybe is the wisest thing to do when we have actual projects that need to be done for safety reasons. So for me, just to say, well, let's do it just to see what the numbers are, is hard for me to spend that much money just to see what numbers are when they've had 2 years to come up with numbers. I mean, I think they could have, and I don't even know who initiated this for sure. I've heard a couple different things, but to come up with a business plan and actually look at your costs, look at what your possible consumers would be. I mean, you could put together a formula of how many cities, what their population would be, take them out, put them in, say if this many were here, our business model is it'll cost this much per household or this much per household. And until somebody sees the value in that homework, I, with good conscience, cannot just say, yeah, sure, let's give you $100,000 to go see what it would be when you've had a couple of years, if this is your business plan, to come up with a business plan. To me, that's how you propose something, is with numbers and facts, not speculation. So that's just my personal opinion, though.
I agree.
I
Mayor,
understand.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. I just wanted to confirm that I did get a hold of Jake and he said, yes, he is in support of putting it on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
I understand that those concerns and it's a challenge when you're comparing different things that we could invest our sacred tax money on.
This is
I
my
think-
Wendover money. This is, you know, like
I
you
know.
have your Wendover money, you have your real money. You don't care if you lose it. This to me, I can't. This is like Wendover money.
I understand that. But to me, I have to balance and weigh out the risks and benefits. I wish the fence at Fascio Park was fixed. But would I rather have better air quality for my grandchildren? And that's a huge difference, right? We see that air quality not only affects our view, but it also affects our health and puts children and elderly people at risk. Children can't go out to play during recess sometimes because of air quality. And I know that's a lot of money that our investment is, but comparatively to our budget, to how much we even spend as a city, not all of our residents and businesses, but just as a city for electricity every year, it's not a huge amount. And it could be worthwhile. Now, I know that it's still a maybe. It's still a maybe, but I have confidence in the agency and their negotiations with Rocky Mountain Power, that as a group, we have a lot stronger voice than we would just as one city. And I think it's worth it.
Well, here, last, the state, we have too many rules, but we don't enforce. Maybe that's a problem with the environment, or even this here will happen in this valley. I wouldn't bring that one in here because there are too many rules, but they're not enforced. They can enforce, they can put it to regulation, they can put in a fine or very heavy fight. Heavy fight for that. And I think we saw a problem that they encourage people not to do here and there, but they not really enforce the rule.
You know, when our big partner investor in our city at that northwest corner made their plans, they had big plans to put in solar panels over these huge warehouses, right? 1 million square feet. And Rocky Mountain Power didn't allow it. They wanted to do that. And we're working with them, and Jonathan's doing some great work with Rocky Mountain Power that hopefully we can get that remedied. But Rocky Mountain Power isn't willing to put in what should be put into our own environment. And we have this great opportunity. We haven't heard from Councilmember Christensen. I'd love to hear his opinion.
Personally, I'm still undecided on it. I would like to see some more solid numbers too. They've had time to put those together and nobody can seem to come up with something. And I know when I investigated solar just for my own house, it was tremendously expensive to get it installed in enough panels that would fulfill the needs of my house, where there are 2 families living there. And so we didn't go with it because it would have been more than 2 years worth of Rocky Mountain bills to install that, and it still wouldn't have taken us totally off the grid because we didn't have batteries or anything else to back it up. So I'm still skeptical about it, but I have not made a final decision yet.
Do you have an opinion about it being on the agenda next week?
Well, the only way we'll get it settled is to vote on it, so we do have to vote. So we can only vote in a regular meeting.
So if we put it on the agenda, you'll have that chance to vote. Is that what you're saying, Don?
Yes. We all will.
Yes or no? All right, so that's 4. So if staff would put that together and put it on next week's agenda.
We have a draft resolution ready for your consideration.
So we'll review that in study session and then vote on it in regular, correct? It'll be on both agendas.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the Bangor Highway update. I've had a lot of questions from residents asking if we formed an opinion yet, yay or nay, on over or under on our 4,700, 4,100, whatever interchanges they're going to give us. So I was just asking for this tonight. Thought we would have a little bit of extra time to be able to see if we want to look at it, if we want to let UDOT do what they want, or if we have an opinion. Do you have an
I have an-
opinion?
I have
You
an
probably
opinion.
live the closest to it.
I
Do you have an opinion?
I do.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm not in favor of spending extra money on going under. If it was the same dollars, I'd be all over under, but yeah, I just can't see spending an extra 5 or 10 or $15 million on something that for a little less noise and a little better view when I'm driving down 47th. So it's hard for me to justify.
Okay. Anyone else with an opinion?
I'm certainly sympathetic to the residents who've come in already and voiced their opinion, that live near there, that are going to remain there. I think this is an investment in the city's future and that area, and I would support going under.
Okay.
I agree with Will, and again, this is not something that's going to be just there for a couple of years. This is permanent, and it is a big investment, and it is a sacrifice. But I think it's worth it for the long-term benefits to go under.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a comment from Councilman Fitzsimonu. He
Thank
just
you.
wanted me to ask if there's any willingness on the part of Taylorsville City to share the cost.
Right now, the people I've talked to on staff has been that they do not want to participate or add any monies to have it go under. I don't know that that was hard, fast, the entire council and everyone, but the 2 opinions I got were they weren't interested in participating.
Mayor, my feeling is that if we do one, we do them all. And I would prefer underpass because it's safer on everything. I mean, I lived at the base of a freeway overpass. My lot was, my fence was on the freeway right away, almost. And yeah, I got used to the noise. I got used to all of that, but I would feel much better. I couldn't see, my neighbors to the next lot because there was a freeway in between. So I would prefer the underpass.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So now we'll go on to our council calendar. Well, I guess, what is the next step if we want to pursue under Mr. Pyle? Do we need
There's
to
no
get
step to
to,
be taken right now, Mayor. We're working with UDOT very closely. We've been meeting with, in fact, we just had a meeting with them last week.
okay,
Knowing what the council's preference would be helpful in our ability to say to them, yeah, we are committed to that, or at least we want to pursue it.
so I have at least 4 that want to pursue under,
Okay.
so we're good there. Okay, I didn't know if we had a timeline we needed to hit.
Not as of right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move to our council calendar. Does anybody have any questions on that one? No? Potential future agenda items.
Got one.
Okay,
Being one of the new guys, I would like a presentation that explains the code violation process from notice to abatement and all the steps in between. I had a citizen in my district who they received a notice, and the notice said, don't pay this for at least 14 days. And then the next day they got another notice that said, pay this, you haven't paid it, and so I'd like to know the process and have a better understanding of that.
okay, that would be more of a communication item.
I agree that should be on the agenda.
Okay. Mr. Pyle, can we put that as a communication item?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I can't really see around the table. I heard 3. Yeah, we want to see that. Do we got 4 or more?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Yep, we'll get it on. We've done that before, and it shouldn't be hard to pull up that presentation anyway, so we could do it pretty rapidly as well.
Okay. Probably not next week, but maybe into June.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have an agenda item? No? Okay. Then we'll go to council reports. Don's unmuted, but I don't know if that's, nope, never mind. He's now muted. Seeing no council reports. And do we have a need for a closed session?
No, ma'am.
Okay, our last item is to adjourn.
Motion to.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you so much. See you at 6:30 in the council chambers for Mr. Norfeld's meeting. Oh, no, it's Mr. Christensen's meeting.
Yeah, I'll be there.